Hi guys, today I'll be taking a look at a Cherry MX Silent Red clone, the TTC Silent Red. Let's get started. Now, these switches are marketed as silent switches. What that really means is that there is a dampening mechanism that makes them quieter than traditional undampened switches. The most popular solution for MX style switches is to have a dampening material above and below the sides of the stem. This reduces both the noise in the down and upstroke. It's an effective solution. However, for the TTC switch, the dampening material is a rubber-like ring that is sandwiched between the stem construction. But there doesn't seem to be a way to silence the downstroke, which confuses me because the switches are still mushier on the downstroke compared to undampened switches. Price-wise, these are very expensive. It's currently $10 for 5 switches the last time I checked. However, I got 30 switches for $15 earlier this year. So I suggest that you sit back and wait for the prices to drop. And this is what they look like disassembled. Feel free to pause the video. Now, let's move on to the switch categories. On-center key presses are scratchy even when typing at speed. It's really not good at all. Off-center key presses are much worse. We're talking Kailh Red and Cherry MX Brown level of scratchiness. It's very bad, and honestly, I think this is one of the scratchiest MX style switches out there. 3 out of 10. Oof. The weighting is light with roughly 1.9mm of pre-travel, an actuation point of 45 grams at 2mm, and a bottom-out force of just under 60 grams at 3.7mm of travel. It's quite similar to the MX Silent Red, but for some reason the manufacturer thinks that these TTC switches are heavier. However, I found them to be a little lighter than the MX Silent Red, so take the manufacturer force curve with a grain of salt. Overall, 5 out of 10. A heavier spring would have been nice and ideal for me though. Sound isn't too shabby. It's a bit louder than the MX Silent Red, but not by much. This is only really because the switch is scratchier, therefore you can hear the scratchiness whenever you type on them. I'm not a fan, but these aren't absolutely terrible. There's just better options out there. 5 out of 10. Now for the typing demo. Enjoy. Now, since this is a silent switch, it's dampened, meaning it has a mushy feeling to it. It's not crappy rubber dome mushy, it still has a mechanical feel to it, but I figure that's worth mentioning. It's also worth noting that these switches do not get any less scratchy in the 2 weeks I tested them. So yeah, they still suck right now. Perhaps some lube can help, but for now, they get a 4 out of 10. Disappointing. For gaming, these are perfect switches for anyone looking for a cheap, quiet, lightly weighted linear switch. However, let me remind you again that these are very scratchy switches and it's not what I would call ideal in most gaming scenarios, especially in stealth games where the gameplay is slower than usual. I'll give these a 5 out of 10. In conclusion, these are worse than MX Silent Reds and I wouldn't recommend them at all, especially at the current prices. I suggest looking elsewhere for alternatives. The final score for this switch is 22 out of 50 or 44%, making it the worst linear switch I've reviewed. Next time I'll be reviewing the tactile version of these switches. Until then, take care and goodbye.